the HBO parent, Time Warner, is widely reported as a top 10 donor of Hillary Clinton, as tracked by the Center for Responsive Politics at OpenSecrets.org. As a presidential candidate, Mrs. Clinton's agenda was to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business. This is what the lawsuit of Bob Murray is saying. And I just actually got off of Jimmy Dore's channel. He was still criticizing Hillary. Hillary doesn't have control of the entire military-industrial complex. The FBI, the ATF, the CIA, the NSA, the Army, the Marines, the Coast Guard, National Guard, Air Force, the EPA, the Cabinet, all the lawyers, the federal lawyers, the judges. He can appoint Supreme Court justices. It's a lot of fucking power. It's a lot of power. And he's bombing whoever the fuck he pleases, too. So, you cannot call yourself a progressive if you, or anti-war, if you're not in favor of impeaching warmongers. You're going to stop the war? How? You're going to get all the Congress people to pull the purse strings? Even Bernie Sanders won't pull the purse strings. That's the only other way to stop the war. Get Congress to pull the purse strings, or impeach the warmonger. Impeach the warmonger whose crime is committing aggressive war and killing innocents, civilians, aggressive war without a declaration from Congress or the UN, just unilaterally going to war with anybody and everybody, white phosphorus, depleted uranium. There's a number of illegality. Okay, so, I can dislike the Democratic Party and the Republican Party with the same breath, right? So I hate them equally, but one has zero power and the other has all the power. So Democrats, what y'all need to do is run true blue progressives, quit getting right-wing fuckers, quit dressing Republicans up in Democrat clothing, actually get Democrats who stand up for their progressive values and take their licks. This is what they believe in, and who are proud to be a lefty. Quit running to the fucking right, okay? So that's simple. Don't run another Hillary. Don't run a fucking Hillary. Run a Bernie. Run a Jill Stein. Run a anybody else but fucking Hillary. She's so goddamn right-wing, it's not even funny. On everything, for a border wall with marijuana, with war. Shit. Okay, so, she sucks. But so do the Republicans. They unabashedly suck, right? The thing about the Democrats is they say, no, we care, but they don't. And the Republicans thing is, we don't give a shit, and they don't. They're being honest about it. They're forthright. No, we don't give a shit. Now we're going to sell it out to Goldman Sachs. Yeah. Nah, no poor people. No poor people. Wages are too high, too. We need to lower wages, and no poor people need to be part of the creation of the economy, according to Donald Trump. Yeah, okay. That's not very populist there. It sounds right-wing totalitarian fascist. I don't know. I mean, I think that you need to critique the liberal gatekeepers, but I think you also need to critique the ones who are dropping the bombs. The mother of all bombs, right? All right. So, this is true, right? Hillary Clinton, she got a lot of donations from HBO Time Warner, but I don't know if that has anything to do with John Oliver. Is John Oliver influenced to be more for Hillary Clinton? He did run that hit piece on Jill Stein. So, yes, he is more prone to be pro-Hillary Clinton. So that's an interesting connection. He is a lefty. He was in favor of Hillary Clinton, and so is HBO's parent, Time Warner. Now, HBO is backing John Oliver, and I'm backing John Oliver too. Fuck the Bob Murray. Bob Murray is a lying piece of shit. I hated how he did the cease and desist letter. So they called him up and they asked him questions, but they didn't like the questions that were being asked. And so they knew that a story was being done, so they sent a threatening lawyer fucking bullshit cease and desist. If you don't cease and desist, you may face the consequences of a lawsuit. So it's just a fucking bullshit. It's a threat, but it is announcing that, you've demanded what you wanted. You wanted them to stop with the story. He broadcasted it anyways, and he even said that it wasn't going to be about Bob Murray until he did cease and desist. Now the whole thing's going to be about Bob Murray. The whole shebang. So he's right. Bob Murray did put this on himself. Somebody calls you and starts asking questions. Why not be forthright? Why not talk to people? Bob Murray just strikes me as a guy who's never had anybody tell him that he's wrong or no. He's got all these employees. They all got 3,000 wage slaves have to kiss his ass. So he's got 3,000 sycophants, probably a bunch of yes men. Nobody's ever told him. And so he goes around, I'm a good man. Oh, okay, if you say you're a good man, I'll just fucking agree with you. But when it comes to the independent media and the government officials, they can see right through the bullshit. In fact, when that big mine disaster had happened, and I wanted to read the names, there's this really good website, but the big mine disaster, the thing with the lawsuit is it's going to be the statements of fact. So rewatch John Oliver and find out exactly what he said. And I got a list here of all the things, factual claims that he had stated, and then also what the lawsuit had stated that he had stated, and then whether or not there's any evidence, that says that it actually happened. So in August 2007, there was the Justice Department was in on it, the Labor Department was in on it. There was a mine collapse that had happened in Utah. And it happened in a county, northeastern county of Utah. I'll get that here in a second. Right here, northwestern Emery County, Utah. So in northwestern county, Utah, you had a underground bituminous coal mine in a mountain that had collapsed on 6 miners. Now they were using the retreat mining tactic. So what they do is they have, there's 2 phases. One is mining on the advance when you dig into the mountain, and then mining on the retreat. Mining into the mountain, you dig all around, but you leave these columns of coal, right? You leave of rock. So you dig all these, you dig everything out, but you leave these columns up. And then you dig as deep as you can. I think you can get like 3 miles in or something. So you dig as far as you can. That sounds crazy though. You dig as far as you can. And then once you can dig as far as you can, then you start going back. You start collecting as much as you can, and then just slowly letting it collapse up until the point of, before you get out of there. Now, this is a very dangerous tactic. 25% of all the coal mining deaths were caused by failures of roof or walls by using this tactic, by using the pillar recovery mining tactic, retreat mining, or room and pillar mining. So it's one of the most dangerous ways. So that means you would have to increase safety, but it also gets a lot more coal out. So 75% of coal can be removed because of this tactic. So I would think a business would use it. It would be smart to use, but just to, up the safety mechanisms. You're using a very dangerous tactic. And Robert E. Murray is 100% wrong on this. He has shown no remorse. He has not apologized for this. He's paid millions of dollars out to the families, which they're under a non-disclosure agreement. But all the 9 individuals who were killed, 9 people died because of what happened in Utah, August 2007, because of Robert E. Murray's policies. The buck stops with him. Robert E. Murray, you're responsible for 9 people dying. You're responsible. And then he was such a dick about it, too. The governor started saying that they were going to do investigations and just make sure that, they were up to code with all the mining. Now, there had been 64 violations. So they had 64 violations at that mine. And then they had like 2,500. There's another fucking coal mine that had like 2,500 violations. So just a shit ton, like just overwhelming. Like, what? How dangerous is that? So there was a 10-day rescue operation. The Crandall Canyon mine collapsed. It trapped 6 miners. All 6 miners are dead. They are presumed dead. They never were pulled out. They tried to dig into it. 3 of the rescue workers who were digging into it also died too. So it's a 10-day sort of fiasco. And then the first day, it had not completely collapsed, but then when it did collapse, then an earthquake had happened, and that's called a coal mine bump. So when Robert Murray comes out and says, well, it was a damn earthquake. Earthquake happened and it wasn't my fault. The earthquake happened because the mountain collapsed, because of the coal mine bump, which is kind of a crazy fucking, a bump sounds like it's just a little bump in the road, right? But it's a earthquake. It measured 3.9 on the Richter scale. So they did this retreat mining. They had all these pillars and columns. They didn't have strong enough pillars and columns. And so when they were doing, either they dug too far, or when they were doing the retreat mining, when the, a little bit collapsed, it put too much stress on all the other pillars, and then the whole thing collapsed, and then it left 6 miners down, deep underground. Now this desertnews.com, it has pictures, and there's a mixture. There's some Hispanic folks and white men. They're all males. So you have Manuel Sanchez, you have Luis Hernandez, you have Carrie Allred, you have Brandon Phillips, Don Erickson, and Carlos Payan. So those are the 6 miners that were trapped. And then you had Brandon Kimber, a rescue worker who had died. And then you had Gary Jensen, another rescue worker who had died. And then you had Dale Black. So those are the names of all the victims who had died in the Crandall Canyon mine collapse of August 2007 in northwest Emery County, Utah. The northwestern Emery County. So it's northwest of Utah, right? So, yeah. Those 9 people, he's got the blood of 9 people on his hands. And even though he had got fined $1 million, apparently it was like $1.5 million, but then they reached a settlement and he was only going to pay $900,000. And then every single one of those families were paid off. So he had to pay 9 individual families for, wrongful death lawsuits. And then you're going to have, the fines of the mine, the labor department, mine regulation, the people that in government that does the, inspections and shit. And they were criticized too. They were saying that they didn't do enough. They didn't check those mines, good enough. But he's such an asshole when the government, the governor of Utah started talking about, just doing some panels and some investigations, taking a look into it. He was like, well, hell, I'm pulling my, operations out of Utah. And then he lays off 170 people in Utah. And he cares so much about the coal miners, he laid them off. He was like, oh yeah, your governor's fucking with me, I'll show you, governor. And then he fucks over the employees. Nope, you're gone. You're laid off. No, you have no job anymore. So that was punishment for the governor saying that he wanted that to be investigated. That happened on like day 20. So day 1, the seismic event had registered 3.9 on the Richter scale. It happened on August 6th. An hour later, the Emery County Sheriff's Department receives a call about a mine collapse. Rescuers attempt 4 separate ways to access 6 miners to be trapped 1,800 feet underground. August 7th, another seismic bump collapses part of the tunnel, shutting down the underground rescue work. We're back to square one underground, Bob Murray says. During a news conference, Bob Murray gives updates, but he also attacks unions. So what did the unions have to do with anything, Bob Murray? What are you talking about? Unions? You just had a shitty fucking mine that just collapsed on 6 people, and somehow the unions have to do with something? So, then day 3, they found out who the names of the trapped miners were. They'll walk out of here, one family member wrongly said. So, there is hope, but they're trapped and they're dead. And then the other 3 eventually go in and they die too. So, 9 people. He is responsible for 9 people. He got fined by the government. He had to pay off the estates of all 9 individuals. So he's paid the money, and even though he's paid all that money and he's been punished, he still feels no remorse. He doesn't apologize for it. He doesn't say the agreement, what he settled to was that there were factors that led to the collapse. So there were things that he could have done to prevent it, but he still, right after the settlement, he said, no, I did nothing wrong. So that I think that just shows that he's a dishonest fucker. He's a plutocrat. He only wants to make fucking money. He's a businessman. He's a shrewd backstabbing. He's a piece of shit. I mean, everybody has a good wolf and a bad wolf to them. So for someone to pretend that they're a fucking angel, they're just Jesus Christ. And look at the man. The man is not inspired. The man is not, he's gross. He's called Obama evil. You know, he's sitting there. He's very much a partisan. He's anti-union, right? Just talks about the environment and shit like that. Donald Trump loves the man, but Donald Trump thinks that global warming is a hoax created by the Chinese, right? So, of course, two idiots are going to fucking fall in love with each other, but he's a plutocrat. He's a fucking plutocrat. He only wants to make a shit ton of money for himself. And so, these are the charges. I mean, these are the things that you had John Oliver was saying, you know, a lot of things about him. Essentially, that he's bad with pensions. He's bad with pensions. He's bad with workplace safety violations, as the collapse in the Crandall Canyon mine in Utah shows. And then he showed no remorse for it. He has no empathy. When his father was paralyzed in a mining accident, he himself was trapped in a mine. He himself had two mining. He got hit in the head with a steel beam, and then he got a big scar going down his from his head to his back. So there's evidence, plenty of evidence. There's this man that says, without a doubt, Richard E. Stickler, he's the government's top mine safety official, says it was not, and I repeat, it was not a natural occurring earthquake. So the Murray says it was triggered, the collapse was triggered by the earthquake, but government seismologist says that the mine collapse was the cause of a coal mine bump. So Douglas S. Dredger, a seismologist from the University of California, Berkeley, said in the July 2008 issue of Science that his analysis strongly suggested that the mountain crumbled in two stages. One, after the pillars collapsed, giant angled slabs of sandstone above the mine abruptly shifted. When the mine collapse finally occurred, it was so powerful that it registered a 3.9 earthquake. Okay, so the pillars collapsed, giant angled slabs of sandstone of the mine abruptly shifted. So it collapsed, and then a shift, and then the whole thing collapsed. So there was two stages, according to Douglas S. Dredger. Now, the practice of retreat mining is clearly to blame. Clearly there wasn't enough safety mechanisms. Clearly they didn't do something right. But Bob Murray says, no, we weren't using retreat mining, and we were doing everything right, and we are responsible for nothing. So this is why you have to punish these people. These people are psychopaths who don't give a shit. You have to find them, throw them in jail or something, because they don't feel bad. They will not. So if we're waiting for their charity, for their sense of decency or humanity to kick in and for them to do the right thing, they just will not do the right thing. So HBO defended the show. They said we have confidence in the staff of Last Week Tonight. Do not believe anything in the show this week violated Bob Murray or Murray Energy's rights. HBO and Time Warner, they were named as defendants, but HBO is backing John Oliver. Remember when they backed away from Bill Maher? They were like, "Humph, humph, we are appalled. Cannot believe you used that word, Bill. How dare you?" So HBO tells TMZ, we have confidence in the staff of Last Week Tonight and do not believe anything in the show this week violated Mr. Murray's or Murray Energy's rights. And he owns the biggest private coal mining operation in the U.S. So he wants to act like he's being picked on. It would be symbolic. You own the biggest fucking coal, mining company in America. So Bob Murray, sorry about your luck, but you're gonna be scrutinized, and you're a perfect fucking candidate because you're a piece of shit. You're a lying fucking piece of shit. You're responsible for 9 people who died. And you're not taking, the buck is supposed to stop with you. The buck was supposed to, you should have done the mining regulations. You're all pissed off about, the government telling you what to do. But if the government would have done a better job, then you would have done a better job. And then these people wouldn't have died. But you don't want to believe that shit. You fucking fired 170 workers from Utah. He fires 170 workers from Utah just because he didn't like the governor. So why'd you, screw over the workers? He screwed over the workers because who gives a, he don't give a shit about the workers. He's trying to settle political scores, and if it means selling the workers out, he's all for it. So, the seismologists from the University of Utah, they said that it wasn't caused by... So there's plenty of evidence that says that it wasn't... the mine collapse wasn't caused by an earthquake, but it was caused by the collapse itself. So I'll come back with more specific details of what it was John Oliver had said about Bob Murray.